Good morning and welcome to Flashpoint. I'm Justin Warmoth. Tuesday marked 1 year since tragedy struck the Orlando Police Department. Lieutenant Debra Clayton, on the force for nearly 20 years, was shot and killed in the line of duty. Certainly a difficult time for her family, friends, and the Central Florida community, as well as the Orlando Police Department. And joining us today on Flashpoint to help us remember Lieutenant Clayton, we have Orlando Police Chief John Mina. Chief Mina, thank you so much for being here. It was a dark day 1 year ago on Tuesday. Took the life of a great officer. Not only that, but also took the life of a responding deputy with the Orange County Sheriff's Office. First off, what do you remember about that day? What were you doing when you first got the call?
I was on my way to speak at a conference, and I got that phone call that no chief wants to hear. That the news that Debra had been shot, and I immediately rushed to the hospital. And one of the things that sticks out to me the most is just the officers at the hospital, her squad mates, other responding officers, and then deputies from Norm. Everyone was just, we were all just broken. It was an extremely hard day.
When you think of it being 1 year ago, is that hard to believe that it was just last year?
It really is hard to believe, but I would say, not a day goes by that, our department, we don't think of her. Many of the things we do, we dedicate to her because she was so involved with the community. It's been a tough year, but we got through it. We're grieving, and we'll continue to grieve for her loss.
We've heard so many stories, and speaking of her community service, about Lieutenant Clayton, how much she loved Orlando, specifically the children of Orlando, volunteering with them. What do you remember most about her, both as an officer and a community ambassador?
Well, first, as an officer, she was always a good police officer. It went so much beyond community engagement, and even the last moments of her life were spent protecting this community. But it was extremely important to her to engage with our youth, to have those informal conversations, use that infectious smile that she had, to build trust between police and the residents, and she knew how important that was.
On Tuesday was the 1 year mark, and there were several events planned. Take me through those events and what stood out to you the most.
It was a beautiful day. You're somber, but we wanted to do something to honor both Norm Lewis and Debra Clayton. Mm-hmm. So it started out at UCF, and there was a procession that came through the city and passed by the Orlando Police Department, and we all stood out there. There must have been 300 or 400 of us, and it was a great sight to see, especially for Norm's mom. Mm-hmm. And then we ended the day with a legacy walk in honor of Debra Clayton, because part of the many community engagement activities that she did was organizing these marches and walks and March Against Violence, and she did very well at setting those up. So we knew that this is what she would have wanted, and we met out at Hankins Park, and there were 200 people there, lots and lots of police officers, and it was great because we all walked together in memory to honor Debra.
As a police chief, I feel like it's tough not to think about the worst when your officers are out there at all times of the night, all times of the day, and playing that in your head of what could happen. Is that something that maybe you thought about before the actual incident, is how you would respond and how you would lead the department afterwards?
It is definitely something that I thought about. I knew that morning I needed to show strength and leadership and lead these men and women through, for many of them, the toughest day of their career. And then, it doesn't stop from there. We're still grieving, and to lead them through, especially those first few months. And of course, with that, we had the manhunt for Markeith Lloyd, right. So there was still a work to be done. And it was a tough time for all of us, but we got through it together. I have a great team, a great bunch of men and women.
And speaking of Markeith Lloyd, I don't want to touch too much about that, but it did last 9 days, the manhunt. I'm curious, what made that so difficult to bring him in, and what do you remember about that night as well?
Well, I remember that we wanted to bring some sort of closure to the family, but also we wanted the community to feel safe, and we knew that our community members were scared. They were frightened. And we wanted to catch him as quickly as possible and bring him to justice. And from that night, when I was notified that we were closing in, I just remember, I'd heard that probably every day before that. Hey, we got him, we know where he is, and to no avail. But that was the night that we closed in, we got him, and my first phone call was to Seth Clayton. And I'll never forget his words and his relief when we told him that we put Debra's handcuffs on Markeith.
A nice moment.
Yeah.
Justice. All right, let's take a short break. When we come back, Chief Mina will talk about whether overall crime in 2017 was up or down, and what we can expect for 2018 as we get going with that. We hope you stay with us. Welcome back to Flashpoint. I'm Justin Warmoth alongside our guest, Orlando Police Chief John Mina. Last year, of course, started off horribly. 2 killings in January, Lieutenant Debra Clayton included, allegedly by the same guy. When we look at the crime stats overall for 2017, what are you seeing, and how do we do?
Well, overall crime was down by 5%. Violent Part 1 crime, which includes things like murder, was down by 8%. One of the biggest increases we saw was in homicides. Homicides were down by over 30%, and that's not including the victims from the Pulse tragedy. So we had made great strides in 2017, hoping to carry that into 2018.
What do you credit with those strides?
It's hard to put your finger on it, but I think it's the community. I think especially after those killings in January, Sade Dixon, Debra Clayton, and Norm Lewis lost his life, and some others. I think part of the credit goes to the community, because you could tell they were fed up and they were tired of it. And I think now more than ever we're receiving more tips and more phone calls about crime. If you think about it, these days everyone has a cell phone, everyone has cell phone video, they can record crime. It's really hard to commit crimes and not get caught in our community.
You guys often are out in the community as well, meeting people with Coffee with a Cop events, and personalizing the badge. That's something that's very important to you as well.
Absolutely, and that was one of the things that was important to Debra too, to humanize police officers. And I say this all the time: is not every conversation has to start with "Can I see your identification?" We need to have those one-on-one conversations with our residents and especially our youth, so they know that they can trust us. We're not here to hurt people. We're here to help people. And the only way that we're going to drive crime down and be a safe and livable community is if the police and the community work well together.
We reported last week that the city is seeing dozens and dozens of these e-commerce deals that go bad, buying things on like Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, meeting the other party, and next thing you know, someone's getting robbed. Why is this becoming such a problem, first off, and what can folks do to avoid falling victim to this?
Well, and there's more and more apps on our phones and our computers to use that e-commerce business. And the most important thing that people can do at the Orlando Police Department, I know other police departments in Central Florida, we have e-commerce safe zones, parking spots, where you can pull your car up there, you can make the transaction, and it's all captured on video and film, and you feel safe because it's the police department. And the key is, if you ask that person to meet you there to buy or sell this object, and they don't want to meet you at the police department, that's a clue. You shouldn't be doing business with that person. So we implore people to go to safe places, especially like a police department. Which is nice, because you guys have that brand new OPD headquarters right there, and that's some of the capabilities that allows you to do those kinds of things. It's a little tougher when it was in the downtown location, not a lot of parking, and that's one of the benefits of having it there. Correct. Those 2 e-commerce spots are right up front. There's plenty of video to capture people that would try and do anything there. That's one of the things that obviously you guys are going to be focusing on as we get into 2018. What else comes to mind when you think about this upcoming year? Well, I think we're going to continue to do a lot of the things that we did last year. Many more community engagement programs, a lot of what we call precision policing. There's only a small group of people that are committing most of the crime. So if we could target those criminals that are committing most of the crime, I think we'll be successful in 2018 like we were in 2017.
Now, there was a stretch where OPD downtown unit, they were having some issues with some of the crowds down there. It has since gotten a lot better from my vantage point, from us in our reporting. What kind of initiative has gone into making that a better place and the nightlife more safe?
Well, anytime you have large crowds, there's always going to be challenges. And downtown, there's additional challenges of alcohol. Many of the issues we deal with down there are alcohol related. So we have increased staffing there. Many of the nightclubs and owners have hired extra duty police officers. Additionally, we just received the federal COPS grant to hire an additional 15 bike officers that will be positioned in downtown and the Paramore neighborhoods to keep that core downtown Paramore area safe.
Good deal. Also upcoming in the next month or two, we have Noor Salman's federal trial, and she is the wife of Pulse nightclub gunman Omar Mateen. What do you expect to happen during this trial? And just from the vantage point, because we're not going to be able to get in there, what do you expect to see?
I expect to see a lot of attention. I think a lot of people in this community and our department are very interested to see what the outcome of this case is. And my own personal views is I think justice will be served.
When you think about Pulse, is that something that also it's got to be tough for you to not have a day go by where that also doesn't cross your mind? And I know some of your officers are continuing to deal with the effects of responding to that scene as well.
It's something that's always on my mind, and especially the emotional well-being of our officers is always on my mind. And we've done a lot of different things as far as counseling, debriefings, and critiques to try and make it better for them. And they know that that is always available to them. So again, I've reached out to several departments throughout the country, and Aurora and Newtown, Connecticut, and others that have dealt with this in the past to see what they have done. And one of the frightening things they told me is that you're not going to be dealing with this for the next year or two. You're going to be dealing with it for 5 years, 10 years. So we're very sensitive to that, and we basically implore our officers to come to us or to go get counseling anonymously, because we know that everyone has post-traumatic stress in a critical incident, but the key is not to let it turn into post-traumatic stress disorder. And the key to that is counseling and awareness. And
I know I'm bouncing around a little bit with this, but I'm trying to tackle some issues here. One thing that is catching a lot of attention is something that here at News 6 we're really pushing for, and that's driving change, where Florida is one of the few states that does not have texting while driving a primary offense. Why do you think texting while driving is a secondary offense here in Florida, and they have not made adjustments? And are you looking forward to seeing this bill go through the legislative session and hopefully pass?
Having texting with driving as a secondary offense is absolutely ridiculous. Texting and driving is one of the most dangerous things you can do, and I'm a big proponent of making that a primary offense, and I know the legislation has just got through the first step of that. I'm really interested to see, and I'm going to do whatever I can to do to help push that through, because we've seen the accidents, we've seen the damage that this causes.
Why do you think it just has not been done so far? Why has this not become law?
That has perplexed me.
Yeah.
It really has. I know there are some that think that police may use this as a tool to stop persons of a certain class. And I will say that, police departments utilize bias-free policing, and if anyone thinks that they were racially profiled, there's a mechanism in place to complain and to have closure to that complaint and investigation.
Well, we hope to see it pass as well here at News 6. We're really pushing for that. Chief Mina, we really appreciate you being here and tackling all these issues and reminiscing about Lieutenant Debra Clayton, as we often should do. Thank you so much. And more news and weather is coming up right here on News 6. Keep it here.